Good morning, cubies and newbies. How are you guys doing this morning? Did you have a nice weekend? I went to my it was my birthday this weekend. So I spent Saturday with my grandbabies, and it was a lot of fun. We had today's Monday, I think. Okay, I am Sunshine, and this is the ABCube method for solving Rubik's Cubes. I created it. It's published online at abcube.how, and I'm in the process of recreating that, so be kind to me if you go there. I also have a YouTube. This is also mentioned on the Wikipedia for the Professor's Cube, because it's a direct solve for a 5x5. This is a newbie method for every size cube. The A and B works on every size cube, from the 2x2 through as big as you can hold in your hand. Formula A brings a piece to the top. Formula B moves 3 pieces around, and that's all you ever need to do. And you don't have to. You don't have to memorize. Let's see if I use. What happens if I do this column and this column? I don't remember. It's all just a matter of selecting a cube that's in the wrong place, and then using Formula B to send it in the direction it wants to be. And they pair themselves out. There's no reduction method. It is similar in order of operations to the cage method, but this just A, just B. That's all you need to solve every cube, because parodies are a lie. A parody, they can be undone with a single quarter turn. You don't have to memorize a parody algorithm, or 2 or 3 or more, maybe, for whichever way a parody can show up. It just works from the outside in. When a parody shows up, you just single quarter turn, it's done, and we move. It is not the fastest method. It's not a speed solving method. It's not the fewest moves method. But since A and B solves every size cube, I believe it is the easiest method to learn. There might be similarly easy methods for the 3x3, but then unless they work on every size cube, it's not competition. So, quite a few of you guys. Everybody have a nice weekend? All right, to demonstrate. Before I begin, I will demonstrate. Okay. When I teach in real life, I start with a 5x5 or a set of 2 through 5. But because when I started teaching with the 3x3 and then tried to move it's the same thing on other cubes. You don't need to do it like, no, you know what? That's all for today. That looks so much harder. I'm sure that's harder. Well, it's not. It really isn't. So Formula A brings a piece to the top. If I wanted to bring, I use it primarily for corners or for the absolute center. So it's 1 row and 1 column. If you apply the bottom row and the right-hand column, then these two are going to switch. So you move this piece away from the action. You move the space it's going to be in down. You move the cube into the space, and the cube in the space up again. And this piece went here, this piece went here. A bunch of other things happened as well, which is why Formula A is done in if you do anything, you do the same thing over and over again is going to get you back to start. So twice puts it back here and flips it. So what's actually moving is these 2 pieces are moving, these 2 pieces are moving, and these 3 edge pieces are moving. So once switches these two, twice switches the back, 3 times, and the centers are back. So since twice moves it back into its spot, and 3 times moves these back into their spot. 2 times 3 is 6. So 6 is the most you'll ever need to do to get back to your start position. So to bring a piece to the top is that. To twist a piece around, also formula A, because we do groups of 1. Okay, let's say that's in the position I want it to be. I slide it out of the way to protect it, and I keep going, finishing out that 6 round with another piece. And the bottom solves itself again. As long as it's multiples of 6, anything you already have solved is not going to be messed up. So, so it'll bring piece to the top, it'll twist pieces around. When it twists the pieces around, if you have 2 pieces that need to be switched, they will be together. They will equal 3. Let me just do it. Okay, so I'm going to put my whites back to the top, formula A, until the white is on top. Slide it out of the way to protect it. Keep going with this one. And the bottom is not affected, and so the top. So for the middle, that'd be with the middle row and middle column. Away, out, down, in, up, and that gives you boxes, or affects your boxes. Again, out, down, in, up. The pieces that are being affected are the top, front, and right. So as long as those are the colors you're working with, it will solve. So that's formula A. Formula B is the top row and 2 columns. And if you're working, if all you have is a 2 by 2, it's easy to see that those 2 columns are the only 2 columns you have, or the outside columns. So if you're working, you've got formula A, your top row, 2 columns. If you're working with the outside columns, slide up, slide up, slide down, slide down, and that moved 3 pieces, and only 3 pieces, and 3 pieces were the corners because we worked with the outside columns, and so the corners were changed. And you don't have to memorize, gee, did that turn clockwise or counterclockwise, because once was one way and twice was the other way, and 3 times is back to the beginning. So instead of learning one algorithm for clockwise and another algorithm for counterclockwise, rather than taking the time to evaluate which direction it has to go, you just do formula B and it's either solved, or you do formula B again and then it's solved. So it's easier, in my opinion, it's faster for me to just do it rather than sit there and go, is it going clockwise or counterclockwise? So with the corners, with the outside columns, it does the corners. If I work with the inside, one outside, one inside column, then it's going to move the edges. If I use this column and this column, for instance, that would be slide up, slide second up, slide down, and that moved 3 pieces, and only 3 pieces around. Formula B is always only ever going to move 3 pieces around. And so again, if I know that this piece, do it again. My brain does not seem to be fully engaged yet today. Sorry, you guys. So you don't have to memorize which 2 columns does what. You just have to find the piece that you want to affect, find the piece you want to move, and figure out the direction it's going to go. So you've got your corners matching the front, it's going in the orange direction. So the 2 columns will always be where you want it to land, and where it is now. So if it's going this way, it'll be first column, second column. If it was going this way, it'd be first column, second column. So the first move is always away from where you want it to go. So away, up, in, up, away, down, in, down. And it's only over 2 columns, So outside columns works corners, outside inside works edges, and if you wanted to move, say for instance, this piece to the top, then this piece would dictate what the two columns are. I move it, I line it up so that something is advantageous to come down, and then this column goes up. I rotate the top to move it into a second column, and then that becomes my second column. That goes up. And then a reverse, down, reverse, down, set the top, and you have moved exactly 3 pieces around. It looks like 2 because 2 of the colors were the same, 2 of the pieces were the same color. So this piece went here, this piece went here, and this piece went here. So, but it is always 3. So you line it up, first column up, move it to another column, second column up, and then reverse down, set the top, and that's done. So you just pick a piece. I do the corners first because the corners then dictate what color each side is going to be, and then I place the edges in between those corners, and then that tells me which those edges keep me honest on which columns I'm on. If I'm using a big cube like this and I forget where I am, or someone talks to me in the middle and I forget whether I'm going to which direction I'm going, the edges are there to dictate to remind you which column you are working on. So that's the quick overview. Again, it works on every size cube. If you have a parity where a parity is something we because 3 was the original. Then when we came out with 4, there was something that could happen on a 4 that couldn't happen on a 3 because there were additional pieces that you hadn't had to affect on a 3x3. In the same way that there's pieces on 3x3 you don't have to affect with a 2x2. But you don't notice the parity until you get to the 4x4. You can have a parity on as little as a 2x2, but you don't notice it because you see it and you make a quarter turn, and then instead of 2 pieces out of place, there's 3 pieces out of place. And you're used to doing that, so you don't notice that it was a parity. You only notice that it's a parity if making that single quarter turn is going to displace something you've already placed. But that single quarter turn will displace the parity because that row itself is the third piece that you're not seeing. And so that's one reason. So I always do the centers last, so that when a parity comes up, I just single quarter turn it and then continue on my way. Whereas if you do the centers first and then pair up the edges and then work outward, you're more likely to get a parity because you're artificially creating one. And then then you have to remember that, what was that parity algorithm again? Not you guys, of course, but I have I have memory problems. Someone asked me how long it took me to come up with this method. It took me a few months, but then I spent 5 years beta testing it before I had it in its final format. I figured it out. I wrote it down. I went to someone, a new person. I said, a non-cuber. I said, okay, here's a cube. Here's my paper. Here's my cube. Look at it and tell me where you get confused. And they'd say, okay, well, what does this word mean here? And so I would take it back and I would rewrite it. I would redo it and then find another new person because they've been compromised now. Here's my cube. Here's my book. Tell me where you get confused. And I did that for 5 years until I got the feedback that I got was, no, it's pretty self-explanatory. And I'm like, okay, great, because I needed to have the manuscript to be able to substitute for me sitting next to you on a bus or something. Because I'd be sitting on a bus. Oh, that's a big cube. Can you solve it? I'm like, oh yeah, it's real easy. And I put it in their hands. I draw what needs to happen, and they'd figure out, oh, the corners are working. That's great, thank you. Because cubing is fun, but my greatest passion is teaching the cubing because it is so fun to watch people who thought they couldn't do it suddenly realize that they can and that they only thought it was hard. Because I'm not really teaching cubing, I'm teaching confidence. Because before you try a cube, I mean, you guys are all cubers, so you already know. But before you try a cube, you think, well, that looks hard, and then you try it, and it is hard because, hey, Hey, it took Mr. Rubik a month. So, but when when the book came out, when the cubes were first, I'm old. When the cubes first came out, this is the book that I bought at my 7-Eleven book rack, memorized, and then I could solve the cube. But as I would at middle school, everyone had a cube, but not many people could solve it. And so mine was, they're like, "Ooh, can you teach me?" And they go, if they didn't have a cube, they'd go buy a cube, and I'm like, "Sure." And they'd say, "What do I do now?" And I would, just using the beginner method, this beginner method anyway, just, okay, do this and then this and then this. Okay, put your hand, if this is the side that faces, put your hand here, and that's when you turn, and you turn this, and I just, people started learning how to solve the cube, but they didn't have, I was their cheat sheet, so they had to keep coming back to me, "Tell me again what I do here." And so then my circle of friends expanded, and they're like, "Will you teach my friend too? She wants to learn." Okay, well, all right, sure. And then there became this cloud of people around me at recess and lunchtime, and it was gradually increasing. Like, will you teach my friend too? And what about their friend? And so it was fun. It was really fun. And then by unspoken edict, just one day, the bullies stopped bullying me. I wasn't physically bullied, but I was, psychologically bullied, emotionally bullied. Like, "Oh, you're ugly. Oh, your mom dresses you funny," that kind of stuff. And one day that just stopped, and then like 3 days later, the biggest bully came into my circle, my cloud of people, and said, "Will you teach me too?" I said, "Absolutely." And from that point on, I was not bullied anymore. So knowing the Rubik's Cube, being able to teach the Rubik's Cube was my salvation in middle school and high school. Because I could not only could I do it, I could teach it. And so I never went into the speed solving aspect of it. We were about to be attacked by a cat. I didn't go into the speed solving aspect of it. It wasn't a thing back then. Before the first competition, speed solving wasn't a thing. It was just, you could do it or you couldn't do it. And if you could do it, then you were obviously some kind of genius, Can I solve the 4x5? You absolutely can. You absolutely can do the reductionist method. However, you can solve it any way you want. But with this method, you do the corners, and then you just find a piece that is not where it wants to be, and use formula A or B to throw it in the direction it wants to be, and they line themselves up. So you can, this is not the reductionist method. This is not, of any kind. It's not reduce it to a 2x2. It's not reduce it to a 3x3. It's just a direct solve. You just find a piece and you move it. And so I should probably start, huh? Okay. All right. Okay. Here's a 2x2. Or I can do my 4x4. All right, let's do the 4x4. All right, so I used to teach color neutrality, but now I usually go with yellow first, simply because all of my cubes have a yellow, and not all of the cubes have other colors. Like my void cube, for instance, has purple and other things like that. And not all cubes are standard colors. So I go with yellow, because on things like my Whittington 3x9, the yellow is also a good place to start. Okay, so I'm going to find a piece that's yellow, because I'm going to take a shortcut to start. So the first thing I do is the corners. So I look, since this one's correct, I'm going to make the rest of the cube match this cube. So because I'm all powerful and I selected this cube, this one's the correct one. So I look at the corner next to it, under my right thumb, and I say, is there a yellow somewhere on this corner? And the answer is going to be yes or no. And so it's not really a question, it's determine, is there a yellow on this corner? If there is, formula A will bring it to the top by just swapping up and down until it's on top. And that's my goal. My first goal is just to bring yellow to the top. So if there's yellow here, formula A works. If not, then I look under this bottom corner to see if there's a yellow here. Because these two are going to switch, and so as long as there's a yellow in one of these two places. Hello! Hi! Where I'm just starting out. I've just been chewing the fat. So someone just joined who I did a walkthrough with on Saturday, and that was so much fun. So is there a yellow here or here? If the answer is yes, A will bring it to the top. If not, I have to rotate the bottom row by quarter turns until the answer is yes. So now there's a yellow somewhere there. So formula A is going to bring it to the top. I already established 6 times gets back to where you were, so it's going to be less than 5 times. So bottom row, right column. I move the piece away, I move the space down, I move the piece in, and the piece and the space up. Is yellow on top? Not yet. Keep going. So out, down, in, up. Yellow on top. Keep going. Out, down, in, up, and until the yellow's on top. Just do formula A. When the yellow's on top, then I slide the top row to protect that, keep that safe, and then I'm going to look at the next corner that I have. Is there a yellow here? Yes. So A will do it, but if not, I would look here and make sure there's yellow there. So yellow in one of these 2 spots, formula A brings it to the top. I know you guys are all cubers, but this is how I teach non-cubers. So yellow's on top, slide it out of the way, keep going until there's a yellow on top on all 4 corners. I have to slide the bottom to find my yellow. There it is. A will bring it to the top. Formula A and formula B is all I use. Okay, yellow's on top on all 4 corners. The next thing to do is each corner has 3 colors, so we look at the other colors and we see whether they match. And if they do, then we proceed on to the next step. And if they don't, we're going to change them with formula B. So green does not equal blue, orange does not equal blue, red equals red. When you're making this determination, either all 4 sides will match to each other, or none of them will match to each other, or one side will. You cannot have 2 or 3 and not all of them. If you have, so it's either 0, 1, or 4. And so if it's 0, it doesn't matter which direction you hold the cube, because you're going to do formula B and then A, and when you finish that step, you will have one side that matches. We already have that one side that matches, so because we do have that one side, it's going to face away from us. So formula B, you notice it's 8 moves. Every other move is horizontal. Every other horizontal is a reverse. If you look at it, it's a mathematical 0. So where there's an up, there's a down. Where there's a left, there's a right. It's not going to move anything except for the pieces that you want to move. So slide the top, left up, reverse the top, right up, keep going with the top, left down, and then right down. And when you look at that, your left corner is still correct. Everything else looks jumbled. You're like, oh no, I messed up. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. We already know that A brings yellow to the top, so we're going to go back to A. And when we bring the yellow to the top this time, they will all match. Or if none of them had matched, one of them will match. And then you do, like I said, formula B, and then A to bring yellow to the top again. And this time they all match. And so when your yellows are correct to each other, then we put it face down, and we're going to abandon the yellows. Now we're going to work on whatever color is opposite yellow, which on standard cubes is white, but you have to verify, make sure that every corner has the same color, and that is the color you're working with next. So we solved the second 4 corners the exact same way we solved the first 4 corners. And what we're going to do, so I'm going to, the ones that's already there, I'm going to save, and I'm just going to work on this corner. So I don't have to look and see if there's a white, because I already did. I abandoning the yellow because I trust it. It is correct. It knows how to be correct, and I'm going to trust it to take care of itself. So as I work with the white, the yellow. Now, this is what Giddy did yesterday. As I'm using formula A to bring my white to the top, and as I'm bringing the white to the top, formula A to bring the white to the top, he glanced at the bottom and said, "Oh no, my yellows are scrambled." Well, no, they're not, because we haven't finished. We're in the middle of the white process. So the yellows, we trust them. They're going to come back. So the white's on top, slide it out of the way to protect it. I don't move the cube. If I rotate the cube, the yellows will scramble. But as long as I don't turn the cube, the yellow's not going to scramble. So this one's already white on top. So let's slide it out of the way to protect it. This one is the last one, so I'm going to bring the white, use formula A, to bring that to the top. And when I do, now I check my yellows, and they're all still there. because we trusted them, and we were right to trust them. They know exactly what they're doing. So yellows are still happy, whites are on top. I'm going to check to see whether, same thing as before, I check the sides to see if they match. Either one of them does, none of them do, or all of them do. So the side that matches faces away, and we do Formula B again. And again, we can see that our yellows are happy. When we do Formula B, that's slide the top first up, reverse the top second up, slide first down, reverse second down. And when we've done Formula B, we can check them out again. They're still happy. Formula B didn't change anything. So now we do Formula A again to bring the whites to the top this time. And again, we're abandoning the yellows. We don't check them halfway through because they're going to look scrambled, but we trust them. So slide the top, keep going with my white. Slide the top, keep going with my white, and I'm not looking at my yellows because I trust them. And so my white's on top, and now I look at the yellows, and there they are. They're all happy. We abandon them because we trust them. Okay, so first four corners are still correct to each other. Second four corners are now correct to each other. All we have to do now is slide the top, if needed, until the top and bottom corners are correct to each other. And when they are, boom, the corners are done. That's the entire first chapter of my book. Yes, I've written a manuscript, but chapter 1 is the corners, chapter 2 is the edges, chapter 3 is the centers, and chapter 4 is pretty patterns and jerk cuts. So there's our corners are done. And when I'm teaching in real life, I'm like, when I'm teaching brand new beginners in real life, I say, okay, that's great, you did it, that's awesome. Here, now do it on this one. Here, now do it on this one. We keep working on the corners until we are comfortable with the corners. Because by that time, they take a picture of my A and B on their phone or whatever. And so the corners only uses A and B. And so when they're completely comfortable with the corners, then we move on to the next. And usually just the corners is the first 1 hour session. It's just the corners. And then like 5 minutes before I send them home, I'm like, oh, by the way, B works on edges too. All you got to do is if you were using the outside columns, it moves corners around. But if you use the outside and inside column, it's going to move your edges around. If you move to inside columns, it's going to move your centers around. But it's still A. It's still slide up, slide down, slide down. As long as you're dealing with two corners, that's going to solve everything else. And I send them home with a 4 or above, so they have something to play with. And they come back in a week, and they say, I just have a question. And it's usually a parody. And so I go over the parodies, and we scramble the cube, and we solve again. And total teach time for this method is between 1.5 hours and 2 hours. I have successfully taught everybody I have tried to teach except for one person. And everybody that I've taught can successfully walk away after that. After those 2 hours, can pick up any cube. Any cube. I thought you said you don't get parody with your method. Parodies happen on the cube, but they're a lie. You don't have to believe them. What a parody is where it looks like there's two pieces and only two pieces that need to swap. You can have a corner parody where this piece wants to be here, this piece wants to be here. You can have an edge parody where this wants to be here, 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 whatever. It doesn't matter what the parody looks like. Whenever there's two pieces and only two pieces to move, then it looks like a parody and you're at a standstill because you don't want to mess up what you've already done, which is why making mistakes is the hardest part about learning the cube is to scramble it. Because when you're just learning how, you're like, I don't want to mess up what I've already done. And when you get farther along, you're like, that doesn't look very scrambled. I can still see patterns. Here, you scramble it for me. So scrambling really is the hardest wherever you are. So when you have a parody, then B moves three pieces around, and so if you're using these two pieces and another one, you're still going to keep having a parody because you're believing the lie. The lie is that there's two pieces. There's never two pieces. There's always three. So if you only see two, the third piece that exists that you do not see is the layer that parody is on. So that layer is 1/4 turn off from solvable. So if with your parody you make whatever row is touching that parody, You make a single quarter turn from the inner layer that touches that parity. Then now you no longer have two pieces out of place. All right, I'll show you. Let me create a parity. Let me create a parity. All right. It takes me a while to create a parity. Mr. Verasano, Jeffrey Verasano, can do a parody in 10 moves. He is my Facebook friend, and he was the person who set the first record. He was in the very first Rubik's Cube competition, speed competition. He set the record. He was the first person. And because he was the champion. Okay, so here I have a parity. If you look at I can solve the centers, but that'll take me more time. So let's just pretend the centers are solved. And if you look at the edges, this piece wants to be here, this piece wants to be here. So it's only two. Okay? But there is a third piece, and the third piece is that it's a quarter turn off. So if I take this, and it doesn't matter I don't need to know which quarter turn turned, it doesn't matter. I just need to know that if these are two pieces, the third piece is the slice. So I make that one quarter turn like that, boom. And then I have this edge piece is now correct, and I have 1, 2, 3 edge pieces that need to be placed, and we know how to do that already. So we can place those 3 edge pieces using whatever algorithm you like, or using my formula B. So that was a quarter turn. Line it up, it's going in this direction, use formula B to place my cube. And as I do that, and now my parity is gone. My parity is gone. I set the top, and my parity is gone. You can see that I did this. You can see that these are the rows that I changed, this row and this row, but it doesn't matter because as long as it's reverse parity algorithm. Yes, but I teach brand new beginners who don't have any, I don't make them learn the algorithms. I don't make them learn the standardized notation. For you, parity is the last step. For me, the edges are the last step. So as the parity shows up, whether it's a corner parity or whether it's an edge parity, I make a single quarter turn and it's gone. So I don't have to learn the parity algorithm because, Saturdays, but parity algorithm only takes 4 seconds. That's okay. How long did it take you to make a single quarter turn? It's less than 4 seconds, I guarantee you. So if you work from the outside in instead of from the inside out, parity is no longer the last step. Oh, and so my last step is to do the edges, the centers, and that is done also with formula B. So I pick a piece, I figure out where I want it to go. I move that piece up, slide to a different column, up, reverse, down, and set the top. So the cube wasn't solved, but the parity was gone. And so I do my centers last. So when I come to the parity, I slide it a quarter turn, and it's gone. So here's a orange. I'm going to put it where this blue is, up, down, down. Now I'm not saying the parity algorithm isn't faster, because it's what you've been practicing and it's what you're familiar with. Well, see, okay. Hi, thank you for following. Here's the thing. You solved the centers first, so for you have to resolve the centers. I solve the centers last, so it doesn't take me any longer to solve them. The centers take what it takes to solve them, whether you do it first or whether you do it last. So again, like I said, this is not a speed solving method. It helps increase your intuitive understanding of how the cube works, but it is not a speed solving method. How long have I been cubing? So this is not, it's not the shortest number of moves, it's not the fastest number of times, but when I teach this method, it takes me under 2 hours total time, and they can walk away with any cube knowing they can put it down in a solved state. So I've taken speed out of the equation for this. Instead of going for the fastest, I've gone for the simplest. So this is so all of your cuber friends, all of your non-cuber friends who say, well, I know you've been cubing for years, but what's the secret? I just want to know how to solve the cube. This is it. Bring them to me. This is the secret. A and B. With that, you can solve every size cube. Yeah, every size cube. It is. This is also if you like Wikipedia, if you look up the professor's cube for Wikipedia, this is listed as one of the direct solves for the 5x5. How many years have I been cubing? Okay. Someone said being in a sentence. Okay. When the cube first came out in 1981, I got it. And it stumped me, and so I went and I bought this book from my 7-Eleven. And I promptly memorized it. Memorized the book. And then the cube was popular, and at that point in time there was people who could solve it and people who had not yet solved it. And because I got the book and memorized it, I did not create the method on my own. I bought the book and memorized it. I was not smart enough to solve it on my own. I knew that. So because I could solve it, then my friends who had a cube and couldn't solve it would say, "Here, can you teach me?" I'm like, "Absolutely." And so I would draw what they needed to do on their cube, and they would do it and go to the next step. I did not come up with this method until this century. I was telling a story about Jeffrey Verasano. Not drawing with my finger, air drawing. I would draw with my finger which moves they need to make. No, I would not do that. But I'd be walking down the street with my cube in my hand, and everyone is like, oh, did you take the stickers off or did you take it apart? Because that was the only way for a non-genius to solve a cube at that point in time. And I said, no, I just twisted it. And they're going, no, you're kidding. Here. And they take my cube and they scramble it up. You'll never figure this one out. I'm going to make, thinking that I had to reverse what they did. Well, you don't. You just just do it. So I thought that I was pretty cool because I was down to like 3 minutes. And we didn't have speed cubes back then. There was no finger tricks. There was no finger tricks. Here's what a cube looked like back then. This is a Rubik's game, but this is a cube from the 80s. It needs a little cleaning, but it took 2 hands to make each turn. Okay, not quite this hard because this one needs cleaning, but it took 2 hands to make each turn, and there was no cornering. It had to be completely lined up in order for you to make the next turn, and so that's what the cubes were like back then. So imagine 23.42 seconds with the original Rubik's Cube, and then pay respect to Jeffrey Verasano. So anyway, because he was there had only been one competition, and he was the winner. When the toy companies came out with the 4x4, the Rubik's Revenge, they invited him to the convention and loaned him a 4x4 to play with. And he was playing with it, he was having fun, and he played with it long enough to realize, oh wait, that doesn't happen on 3x3. How do you do that? And then they said, okay, convention's over, and they took the cube away, and he's like, I haven't solved it yet. And for me, that would have been a problem, because I would have had a problem in my head I couldn't solve. But for him, he went home, got out his colored pencils and some graph paper, and he drew out what the parody had looked like, and he figured out how to solve the parody, and he was able to undo the parody, or to create or uncreate a parody in 10 moves. So that I find that mind so incredibly sexy. So yes, parodies can happen, but they're lies. And if you just undo, hi everyone. see some new names. If you've just, do I have the original 4x4? I do not have the original 4x4. I do not. My parents bought it for me when it first came out, and I was figured out how to solve half of it. I was doing layer by layer, and I got half of it solved, and then one of the pieces broke internally, and I didn't know how to fix it, and I couldn't put it back together again. So I had this unsolved problem in my head for a couple of years until I got another one. Neuro spicy. So yeah, I am Sunshine. I created this method for solving Rubik's Cubes. It is not a speed solve method. It is not a fewest moves method, but it is, I believe it's the easiest method to learn, especially when you factor in that it works on every size Rubik's Cubes and not just the 3x3. No, that was 40 years ago. I do not still have it. But I do have a couple of, I do have an original in the box. Where is it? You guys want to see a Rubik's Cube from back then, never opened? Tell me, I'll go get it. Yes, okay. I will be right back. Okay, here we go. It says the original Rubik's Cube, and it's in the cardboard box. You can see it, and it's yellow is opposite white. The first Rubik's Cube that I got had a different coloring. The white was opposite blue. So the fact that it says the original Rubik's Cube is how you know that this was not the first edition, because it was just Rubik's Cube. There was no the original on it until it started getting copied by people out of the country, and so when they were reissued, it came out with it was the original, so that you knew that you were getting the Rubik's, not another brand, because he wanted his money. So, and then if you look there, Rubik's Cube. So, I have not taken it out, so I do not know how it turns, but you can hear it. Let's see. I believe so, yes, unless something has happened recently. Erno is still alive. And interesting bit of history, though, is that he did not invent the puzzle. He only invented a way of holding a 3x3, a three-dimensional cube together so it would still turn. He was trying to demonstrate to his students, how atoms rotate around each other, and he did not know that it was a puzzle until he painted the colors so that he could see more visually how they were turning. And then after playing with it for a couple hours, he decided to put it away and couldn't put it back. But the puzzle itself, as a 2x2, existed before then. It wasn't. The difference was, it was Nichols was his name, and it was still 6-sided, 6-colored, but it was held together by magnets. So if you couldn't twist it, if you couldn't get it together, you could take it apart by magnets and put it back together again, solved. But that was a couple years before Erno Rubik patented the 3x3. And then when the Rubik's Revenge came out, that also was not Rubik. The first Magic Cube, yes. But the Nichols Cube was, I don't know what it was called, but the Nichols had a toy of the 4x4 held together by magnets before that. They did call it the Magic Cube, and then they're like, "Oh, we can't call it that. People will think it's satanic, part of the occult. We can't call it magic. We have to call it something else." So they called it the Rubik's Cube. And then when the 4x4 came out, he could have called it the inventor of the 4x4. I don't remember his name. could have called it anything he wanted, but he wanted to follow the naming nomenclature of the 3x3, so he called this one Rubik's Revenge. And I thought that Rubik had invented it because everyone had been copying his 3x3, but no, it was invented by somebody else. So this was then called, the 4x4 was then called the Rubik's Revenge. And when the 5x5 came out, it was called the Professor's Cube. So again, if you go look at the Professor's Cube, the Wikipedia for the Professor's Cube, you will see my name on it. You will see ABCube method as one of the solves for the Professor's Cube, because that is that much fun. So I do the corners first because every cube has 4 corners, regardless of which cube you're working on. Corners, they're all consistent. And then once you have those corners done, then that is a good way of knowing what colors are. If you have a 4x4 and you don't know, you haven't memorized the color situation on the 4x4, then when you try to do the centers first, you might, it might be incorrect. But the corners can always only be correct in one way. So that I do the corners, then the edges, and then the centers. What's my main 3x3? I just got, this one I just got, it had a little M on it. I just put it away. Hold on, let me get that. Hold on. Okay, this is me with my cubing bag, my cubing backpack. It's a Moyu something, and the top half is a backpack, and the bottom half is cubes you can access. So there's my cubes. So there where I can reach it. My main 3x3 is this one. It's an MM. I don't know what the M is, but when I bought my dragon cube, I got a dragon cube. Oh, it is so awesome. Do I do comps? Not yet, but I would love to. But when I bought my dragon cube, it was like, buy a mystery cube. To buy a $30 mystery cube for $12. I'm like, okay, sure. And this is the one that came, and oh my goodness, it's magnetic. It's so soft and so smooth. And it just whispers soft, and it moves so nice. I have a Duncan cube that moves easier than this, and it's so easy to move that I over move. I can't use that one. But this one, this is my favorite. This is the first magnetic cube I got, and I didn't realize I didn't have any magnetic cubes. But so this one came, and I'm now sold. This is also one of my magnetic cubes. This is the GAN mirror cube. I have several mirror cubes because not because I bought them myself, but because I bought out other people's collections of cubes, and several of them had a mirror cube. So I had a mirror cube, but it was hard to solve because you have to have it completely lined up. Well, this one locks into place by itself, and I'm like, oh, I was so happy with this one because I can do it. As a passenger in the car at night, I can do it in bed while I'm waiting to fall asleep. I can just do it by shape. I thought, if I have a mirror cube, I can just do it by shape, but no, not unless it's magnetic, because it's hard to line the pieces up when you can't see what you're doing. Duncan, like the Duncan yo-yo. The company that makes the yo-yos made the cube. Yeah, no, it's not a picture cube. It's just bought it at Walmart. You want me to go get it? I can go get it. My cubes are in the other room. I can't really show you my collection, but these are in my bag. I have from the 2 through the 8x8, then I have the 3x3x9. So in my bag I've got everything. Get it? Okay. All right, hold on. Okay, I'm sorry I lied. I can't go get it because it's in my collection of my tutorial bag. I have all of my extra cubes are in a bag that I'm signed up to teach at the library, newbies. But and my tutorial bag is in my car because I'm in the process of moving. And that was the first thing I was going to move over, but that was going to be at the first of this month. But when I went over there to start moving my first load in, they're like, "Oh, the basement's flooded. We're sorry. Hold on, we'll fix that." So it's been sitting in my car for a month in the first load to unpack. Once so now I'm moving into this month instead of the end of the last month. But come back, follow me. I will have it. I'll be able to show you once I'm in my new place. In the meantime, what I do have a couple of pretty things here that I have. How fast I'm in a 3x3. Okay. This is a mirror cube, but it has dual solve, so you can solve it by colors or you can solve it by shape. And if you solve it by color, it just looks like this strange geometric something. And if you solve it by shape, it of course just looks like this abstract art thing. So that's my second favorite building cube. And I also have, here's my Whit Eden 3x9. This is the colored mirror cube. Yes. This is my Whit Eden 3x3x9. And formula A and B solves this as well. I don't use any algorithms. I only use A, only use B. The difference is that, you know, for when I'm doing the white side and the yellow side and the center, you know, B works just fine. But when I get to where I want to be moving the side things, the 9 x side, instead of just using my left and my right at the top doesn't work because it doesn't line up. So the only difference is that when I'm doing formula B, I do 2 for every horizontal instead of 1, and that way I can move the middle columns. So it's still formula B, but instead of left and right and left and right, right and left, right, left, it's twice. Every time a horizontal move it's twice. But then I can solve the 3x9 with it as well. So that's fun. The ABCube also solves these, and the bigger versions of it. Also just A and B. The only difference between this is this has an order of operations. For these, when you apply formula B to the absolute edges, the tips of the star, because I'm using this column and this column, and because it's not a cube, this has undesired effects when I'm doing these. So if you do the tips first, then when you solve the corners, you're not resolving the corners, so it doesn't matter. So the only difference, A and B works on this. You just do the star first, and then everything else, just A and B. It would be an interesting stream if you learned full OLL and full PLL. I have learned different methods, but like I said, I've never really, you know, when little 16-year-old me watched the ABCube, watched the first Rubik's Cube competition live, I'm like, I had no idea what I was expecting, but it's like, oh, there's a competition for Rubik's Cubes, let's see what that's like. And I watched, and CFOP is the best. This is IFF2L. So 23.42 seconds. I looked at my cube that I could solve in under 3 minutes because I was so fast. I put it down. I'm like, that's it. I can't compete with that. And I didn't touch it for a month. I was so upset. But so I didn't go in the speed route, but I did go. Well, I went the teaching method instead. I started teaching all of my friends and teaching everybody. CFOP is the best. CFOP is probably is that the best beginner's method? Because I would like to pat myself on the back, and I think that because this method works not just on the 3x3, but on this as well. And it has done, this method does away with parity algorithms. You don't ever have to memorize or use a parity algorithm again, ever, if you don't want to. But because this works on every size cube, and it's just 2 formulas, I believe this is the easiest to learn. If you don't ask Giggity, he learned it on Saturday. He just says it's simple to learn. Go back and look. So I believe that I'm proud of myself. Best is subjective. Mine is the best beginner's method, but not the best method in general. Depends on what you're going for. If you're going for efficiency, no, this is not the best. Efficiency if you're going for speed or shortest moves, this is not that. But I said I've successfully taught everyone who's wanted to learn. Yes, I've successfully taught everyone except for my sister. 10 minutes in, she said, "I'm sorry, this just isn't for me." and she stopped. And so now she tells everybody, I'm like, I taught everybody that and she's like, well, you couldn't teach me. I'm like, okay, couldn't teach you. But everybody that has ever asked me and that I've ever tried to teach has gone away in under 2 hours teach time, walking away with knowing how to solve every cube. And when after I teach them, I let them take a pick of whatever cubes I want. One of my friends just walked away with took a spare 6x6. I had a spare 6x6, and so she took that one. And a few weeks later, someone else said, "I'll be back." Okay, good luck on your endeavor. All right, you guys. So this has been fun. I do have, but I suppose I should wait for I'm a bean to be back. I don't want to just leave while she's gone, not expecting to return. But I hope you guys all have a great day. Wow. If you're not following me, why not? That's fun. Be nice to me. I love it. It makes me happy. Follow me. I hear that chime. Oh, wow. Someone's following me. Anyway, if you have non-cuber friends who just want the secret and don't care about speed, this is it. Okay, so what else do I have to show you? Oh, I have this to show you. I have a holster that I can take a cube along with me. This is what it looks like. Crossbody. And it is Anoni Buenos Aires. And it holds a standard Rubik's Cube, which my 5 is a mini, so it holds that as well. So I take that with me. That's a fun one. When I don't want to take my whole bag with me and I just want to have something with me. I've got. Oh. There was a spider in it. I haven't used it in a while. Oh dear. Anyway, so I do have a leather holster for my cubes as well as the backpack. All right. So the 3x9 again, it demonstrates. So if I apply the formula B to the 3x9, then it would be a cross, and then it'd be like, say, up, and then second layer up, and then first layer down, and second layer down. And what that does is it moves these 3 edges, these 3 centers, these 2 edges, and these 2 edges. So, and you do it again, up, up, down, down, and the edges are back because those were flipped and they go back, and then you see that the corners are back, edges are back, the centers are back, are these 3. So when I got the 3x9, I spent a month scouring YouTube looking for ways to solve it, and I could not follow any of the tutorials, and I'm like, my brain is not smart for this. And the closest I could get was, here's this long algorithm, and it will move these things and these things, so hold your cube, so that's going to be advantageous, and then do this algorithm. It was a big old long one, and then you'll be back. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. And so then I took after a month of, I can't do this, I'm not smart. Get back. I think I messed up. After a month of doing that, I went and took one of my big cubes and said, okay, let me just pretend that I can't move the yellow and white. And so I tried to see, I did the Formula B to see what happened, and I figured out what it would do. So then I mastered the 3x9 overnight because AB worked. I have this one. I have the this is the one I gave my dentist. And he's like, he's like, I could probably learn a 1x1, so I got him a 1x1 and autographed it for him and gave it to him. So that's fun. All right, that's it for me for the day. I gotta go feed my face. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for spending time with me. Go be nice to yourself. Go have a great day. And I will be back here tomorrow, same time. I'm here every weekday morning, and then Saturdays, and for Saturday mornings also, and Friday even afternoons I just kind of play. This was supposed to be today was supposed to be corners because it's Monday, but I would much rather chat with you guys than monologue. So I will be back tomorrow. You guys have fun.